Whoa! Serious off-roading here. Really letting out those side pipes! Today I'm in Bali, and in this video I'll see some very particularly modified Daihatsu Ferozas, get to know some of the Owners Club members, and maybe someone from the Owners Club will let me drive his modified vehicle. The car scene and traffic in Bali is absolutely unique, with many rare, vintage and just plain weird cars and motorcycles. I have a separate episode about that. I'll leave a link to it in the end screen and description. But most of all, my attention was caught by a lifted off-roader with chunky tires and nose pointing up to the sky. So at first I thought it's an unfinished project, someone driving to a garage to finish it, maybe prepare for some sort of off-road competition. But then I noticed many of them and I thought it has to be some enthusiasts club that does that on purpose. So I had to find out more. I started a conversation with the Owners Club member Eric, who had parked his lifted Feroza at the beach and agreed to meet later. At the moment I didn't realize how lucky I was. In a few weeks the Feroza Owners Club party would take place and I would have an opportunity to see a dozen of these things. So I went to see it. Yep, you cannot hear what I'm mumbling there because the microphone had unplugged. Shit happens. Anyhow, I went to the meetup with more than a dozen of these cars in one of the Owners Club members' yard. It was a friendly gathering in local style, grilling really spicy chicken satay and drinking bintang beers. The community was welcoming and they all share passion for making their daily driven Daihatsu Ferozas as flashy as possible. The crazier the lift kit, the larger the wheels, the better. Flashing lights, loud audio systems, sirens, colorful decals, everything helps making the car look eye-catching. Each owner of course says their car is the best. So we spent maybe an hour there with me admiring the cars, but it was only a stop for lunch. The actual destination for our party was the beach. And getting there was not just a bunch of cars driving off, it was a whole event. So everyone was lining up on a street to form a convoy and working out the logistics how to avoid creating a traffic jam, sirening and every third car blasting its own repertoire of loud music. So we set off for the Semanggi beach. One of the guys made sure that the whole column gets through all intersections uninterrupted. In Bali, by gesturing with one's hands, anyone can become a traffic regulator.
column of these off-roaders driving through towns and countryside was a spectacular view. I, however, was not in one of the cars. I was taking on a scooter to be able to capture some footage, with no helmet, holding on with one hand. Should anything had happened, I'm pretty sure my insurance doesn't cover anything under such circumstances. When we arrived, the off-roader column was granted the whole roadside that led all the way to the beach. Given how busy the beach parking spots get close to the sunset time, it was probably a privilege of local acquaintances. The party itself was a friendly car enthusiast get-together with many of the members bringing their whole families. The view was beautiful and I had an opportunity to find out a bit more about the cars.
Accommodation in Indonesia, but the engine coming from Japan.
Which brings me to the next part of this video, having a closer look at one of these Daihatsu Ferozas. Before we visit Eric, remember the car in the background from the beginning of this video? For reference, this is how a standard Feroza should look like, apart from the winch, motorcycle rack and the wheels. It says Rocky on the side, not Feroza. That's because there were many modifications with different names. Feroza was the rear-wheel drive petrol engine version, and then there were Taft GT, Rocky, Highline, Rugger, which were four-wheel drive and were called differently depending on the region for which they were marketed and had some slight differences. The model could be a soft top, a hard top, a wagon, and Astra Daihatsu made a unique Indonesia-only four-door model on a longer chassis. During its 22 years of production, the model had received countless variations of decorative details like front grille designs, different wheel arch flares, side steps and interior trims. The model was competing with short wheelbase Isuzu Trooper, Toyota Land Cruiser, Mitsubishi Pajero and Nissan Patrol. The model began to be produced in Japan in 1984 by Toyota and a year later in Indonesia by Astra Daihatsu Motor. The company imports most of the parts from Toyota in Japan and assembles the cars locally. This company is responsible for most of the Daihatsus and Toyotas on Indonesian streets, except those that are imported. The model was produced in Indonesia till 2007. Alright, now let's check out an improved Feroza in Balinese style.
Today we have come to the countryside with our friend Eric, and he let us have a closer look at his Feroza. So as you can see, it is not a normal Feroza. I've seen on YouTube there are a couple of Ferozas that are like standard and there is not much to see, but this one is definitely not a normal Feroza. So as you can see, it has its nose lifted quite high. The rear is still moderately low. It has some chunky tires, and yeah, let's go. Let's see what else is interesting. So the way this front is lifted is the original leaf springs, which used to be mounted on the bottom of the axle, now have been put on top of the axle with some spacer, and there's some extra spacer between the frame and the bodywork. Also, the linkages have been extended with some welded pieces. And that's pretty much it. I suppose the rear is not lifted because it's a bit more complicated to extend the drive shaft and balance it. What else? The interior is quite sporty. It has some Sparco racing seats. The rest of the interior is quite standard, so there is something that in Europe we couldn't really afford, like sirens and police lights, some multimedia fitted in the standard dashboard. So you don't see the lever for four-wheel drive because this already was the rear-wheel drive version. Generic instrument cluster. Looks like it doesn't go much faster than 160. But on this island you don't need to go any faster than 50, I would say. the traffic is so horrific that it would be a suicide. So as the car sits in an angle, I would imagine the seating position to be also quite laid back. But it has been taken care of by adding some spacers so that the seat is kind of horizontal. Some extra speakers. Speaking of which, actually, at the rear you are in for a surprise. So this car doesn't have too large space for luggage, nor does it have a large space for passengers, but it has been fitted with a subwoofer which takes up all the space at the back, with some bar with some Captain Morgan and vodka. So the previous party was quite fun. All these bottles are empty at the moment. Eric himself actually does all these customized speakers back at home, and yeah, it looks quite mean. I haven't actually heard how it sounds. Maybe we'll be lucky enough to turn it on. So, no space for luggage. What else? So at the rear you can see some spacers between the frame and the bodywork. It also lifts the rear part of the car a bit up. It looks like it has had some anti-rust treatment. I don't know why that is necessary here. They don't have winter, they don't have salt, the weather is, well, tropical weather. But anyway, it won't rust. And bear in mind that it is 1991 maybe? What year is it?
94.
1994. Alright, so it has survived more than 20 years and it has not rusted. Interesting thing about the exhaust. So this car has 1.6 liter 4-cylinder engine, which should sound as any 4-cylinder 1.6, but the exhaust has been modified to have 2 pipes each side. So the firing order to each pipe kind of resembles the Subaru. Getting in is also maybe not simple. Yeah, so it's not the normal 4-cylinder sound. It kind of sounds similar to Subaru, maybe, to flat 4. And I love that. I thought, why isn't it possible to make an exhaust manifold that sounds like Subaru on a 4-cylinder engine? And this guy has done it, so I'm not the first to have this idea. Okay, it'd be interesting to see what's under the bonnet. So the access to the engine is a little bit more difficult because of the height. And wow, there is plenty of space. I think it has quite some room for customization. So there are 2 batteries. One might be for the subwoofer system at the back.
About the engines, there were 1.6, 2 and 2.2 liter petrol options and 2.8 liter diesels with or without a turbo, with power output ranging from 72 to 123 horsepower. This particular engine is Daihatsu H-Series 1.6 single overhead cam with 16 valves, and these engines could be carburetted or fuel injected, with power ranging from 82 to 125 horsepower accordingly. I was surprised how much free space is in the engine bay, but that's mainly because the engine sits on the frame and the engine compartment is lifted in relation to it. The secret to the exhaust rumble is hidden here. The exhaust manifold connects cylinders 1 and 3 in one pipe and 2 and 4 in another pipe. Since the cylinder firing order is 1, 3, 4 and then 2, each pipe gets 2 exhaust gas impulses sequentially after 180 degrees with 360-degree gap before the next 2 impulses come, thus creating the uneven pulsation of pressure waves. Not exactly the Subaru tone, which is due to unequal length exhaust manifold, but definitely a distinctive rumbling sound.
Whew, it's a bit hot in here. It doesn't drop below 30 degrees. But yeah, Eric let me drive his Feroza. We'll go to the city and see how it drives. Alright, this might be one of the most interesting drives in my life. Used to wearing seatbelts, but it's not really mandatory here, I think. Key is in the normal place, the pedals in the normal place, the gear lever quite low, but yeah, like a normal right-hand drive car. That's gonna be fine. The gear lever somehow goes into the seat, but I think I've engaged it first. Wow! The front is so high that I feel that I'm in a ship, not in a car. It's like going over everything. The gas pedal, the gearing, everything is quite simple, like a normal car. And I'll definitely need to get used to the dimensions of the car. The steering is quite vague. I would say there is like 15 degrees of free play. And the corners in the front, I don't see what's behind them. So maybe there is a motorcyclist, maybe there is a scooter, or worst case scenario, another truck like this. So these are quite short corners. Oh yeah, the sound. Whoa, the cornering. I mean, I don't know how the Feroza is handling when it's standard. But this one is, it has some boat properties to it. You are like choosing direction, not really the exact path. And I'm really hoping that the steering mechanism will turn, because it has some delay in it. You have to be brave to drive this. But you definitely feel higher than the rest of the traffic. So it kind of encourages you. Of course, I don't want to be causing any trouble. Wow, the cornering. It leans in the corner quite a lot. So my head is in the ceiling. I think it's due to the lifted seat. So I either have to be a bit with a humped back, or with my head bent. But the experience is like nothing else. The wind is blowing, we are higher than everyone. The sound. The sound. It's really like a Subaru. And on these narrow roads, I mean, we are going, what, 50 kilometers per hour, but it feels like it's 100 because everything is passing by so quickly. The narrow streets, I'm afraid that there will be someone behind the corner. It is fun. It is fun. Yeah, with the bonnet so high up. This car, this Honda, is afraid of us already. And I would be. Whoa! Serious off-roading here on the road. But we have chunky tires, we have off-road tires. I don't think we have to be afraid of some small irregularities. Okay, so it's a bit struggling against the hill in the third. And the second is fine. Really letting out those side pipes. Alright, there is some construction on a car. Oh, okay, that's not an indicator. I'm used to the BMW. Yeah, right, the Japanese have the indicator switches on the opposite side. So I have been here for a month, but I'm still not absolutely sure who has to give way to who. I'm presuming it's the opposite of the right-hand drive, but the thing is that it doesn't work really. Like, everyone's just driving when they please. I hope there is no... Oh yeah. Okay, it has quite a lot of revolutions from left to right, so you have to work the steering wheel quite a lot. Gotta remember that it's an off-road vehicle first of all. So this particular road right now is not really smooth. It has some bumps, and I can feel the steering just wobbling with all the bumps. So it's not a safe feeling, but it's fine. It's fun. And here in Indonesia, overtaking in the same lane from right, from left is a normal thing. So you need to be aware of everyone around you. You cannot count on other drivers that they will obey some sort of traffic rules and common sense, really. Okay, first gear. Wow. Someone who is complaining about handling in any car should drive this. Wow, a scooter just pulling out from the left. Whew! I'm just hoping we will not run over someone. Not because I'm not paying attention to the road, but because they just pull in front of us. I've driven some interesting cars, some powerful, some just stylish, but this will stay in the memory as one of the most extreme drives ever so far. I mean, we'll keep traveling, we'll keep looking for interesting vehicles to review. There's a big van, probably to make the babi guling. No, I think this is not babi anymore. Those were large pigs. Oh, there's one modified truck in front of us. That's also interesting. Looks a bit more agricultural. Let's get him. With his exhaust. Yeah, I mean, this lifted front makes you feel that you're above everyone. You are higher, you're bigger. Although for European and let alone American standards, the Feroza is very small off-roader, like Suzuki Jimny, but here it feels huge, like a Indonesian Humvee. So I think if it was not lifted, if it had the original wheels, it would be perfectly fine for anyone to drive. It's really easy steering wheel. It turns easily. The clutch is light. The gear changes are precise. The owner is car mechanic and he maintains the car well. So it's modified, but it's in good condition. All right, that was quite a drive. Unforgettable. So the seatbelt doesn't retract. Handbrake. But the rest is like a normal vehicle. Everything is working. The windows, the doors, indicators, lights.
So we stopped for a meal in a local warung and swapped seats for the rest of the way home.
So this is?
Babi begenjol.
And that's the vegetarian.
Nasi begenjol.
Arriving at Eric's home marked the end of our trip. Ironically, he has a purposefully widened car and one of the narrowest driveways in the neighborhood. So the final thoughts. Well, these kinds of car modifications wouldn't work in most of the world. The front of the car is so high up that exceeding 100 km per hour would result taking off, or at least the steering would become dangerously wonky. So the highway speeds would be limited. Off-roading? Probably not. It is rear-wheel drive only and the height of the body isn't achieved by increasing suspension travel or ground clearance. Nor would it pass any of the certifications or roadworthiness tests. But here in Bali, where the speeds rarely exceed 60 km per hour and technical inspections aren't mandatory, these things just do not matter. The Monster Feroza is the king of the road. It stands higher than the rest of the traffic, it turns heads with its extreme appearance. Imagine showing up in the center of a local town in one of these. You'd be waved at, beeped at, smiled at. Even more so if arriving with a column of your friends. And overall, acquiring a car like this isn't about the technical capabilities, it's about the community. It's an integral part of this car, so you are not only buying or building an extreme-looking vehicle, it also grants you the membership in this community and friendship of its lovely members.